Hey, this is all you, buddy. So, like I said,
Oh, I'm good.
it's pretty cool. We're talking movies, well, a movie franchise.
Yep. So, all right. Happy Halloween. I know it's early, but this is actually ties into our Requel Halloween series that we're doing. So this is episode 1 of our Halloweens. And we have a few more coming down the pipeline. And I hope to get them out soon. This should be, technically, this is episode 4 of Requel. Episode 3 actually appears on the Krypton Report. It's a crossover episode. So, Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Sometimes I can't tell because the kids, because they kill in my background.
Because 3 hasn't gone up yet, because I don't think our talk about The Crow for 2 went up yet.
Yep, The Crow hasn't went up yet, which is like our segue to Halloween. Because I always like that movie like at the beginning of October, because it's like my kickoff for Halloween film.
Well, the good thing, bad thing is I think we've been bombarding Rob with so much content. So
he's like this, yeah. He's like, man, too much crap, guys. I mean, too much stuff.
I don't know if there's like a certain amount he can put up in a week, and he's like, I got this.
But today we're going to talk about if you were a kid in the 90s, not even a kid, anywhere from a kid to a young adult in the 90s, and you liked horror a little bit, this franchise touched you. And what franchise might that be? It is Scream, which is one of my favorite horror franchises because it's a slasher, but at the same time, there is a mystery story going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of like it is a horror movie, but it's also like a more serious, scary movie.
Yeah, like it's also got like I've often told my mom like if she would watch it without like if I could just watch it on TV with her, she hates all the blood and guts. I'm like, there's not that much in it, compared to some other of that genre, but like the story is actually really neat, and like some of the directing techniques, like I always love the fact that they never put the actor who's the killer in the suit until the final shot of the movie at the reveal. So you can never use context clues like, oh, they look like they're 6 feet, or it looks like a guy, you know.
I remember sitting when I watched that the first time, and I was like, body language, who could that be?
Now, when I saw the first one, I remember being in school, and the weekend it came out, and like everybody saw it and came back and was talking about it. And then I was like, man, I want to see this, but I couldn't. But I went and I rented it with my grandma because my grandma is awesome. Was awesome. She watched it with me.
That's the quote of the night. My grandma is awesome.
She watched it with me because her and me and my cousin, we watched it all together. And it's one of the first, at the time, it was one of the first more modern horror movies that I had wanted to watch at the time. But, and then of course the next year, what do we call it? The next year, Scream 2 came out. And then 3 years later, we got Scream 3 and then Scream 4. So, Phil, tell me like your history real quick with the series. Why I get Sailor a bottle? Tell the fans. I'll be right back.
I believe it's hard to remember. 97. That was like what, 20 years ago. I believe I saw it at the movie theaters with some friends. I wouldn't say high school. It's the year after I graduated high school. Yeah, a year after I graduated high school, me and a bunch of friends saw it, and I remember, like I was telling Tyler, I was trying to like be all cool and read the killer's body language and guess who is the killer. Are they gonna pull some kind of trick? Is it going to be one of the girls is the killer, but it ended up there was more than one killer?
You know,
I sent you. Sorry. Are you looking at the text? I accidentally sent you the one I was sending my wife. So, but I do love you too. Okay.
I know it flashed across my computer screen. I was like, I love you, Phil.
I'm just waiting for Janina to walk past and be like, "Who said they love you?" Oh, your other wife, Phil. Okay.
Yeah. That's what she said like the other night. She's like, "You talking to your girlfriend?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Tell Phil I said hi." But okay, so we're setting up our options. Okay, now we're not going to look at or discuss the TV series. To me, the TV series is its own entity. It's like, in my opinion, it's like multiverse. It's set on a different Earth. Okay, we're looking at the 4 films. Option 1 is, would you want to do a sequel to Scream 2? Okay, not having Scream 3, or would you want to follow Scream 4? Or would you want to do a prequel to Scream 1? What option would you, Phil, want to do?
Probably the thing I'd want to see the most is the prequel, the whole thing with the dad and everything, because I don't want to see past 4. I think they didn't even need a 4.
They didn't need a 4. I liked 4.
I mean, 2 and 3 are okay too, but you really didn't need anything past that 1. I mean...
1 is brilliant.
The further you get past 1, it's more like, they're doing it for the payday.
I like 2 because I like the idea, because like the killer reveal is great in 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't see it coming because you have no context of who it could be. And I mean, spoilers, but come on, these movies have been out for 20
the
years.
First one was 20. The first one, it's 20 years ago.
97, it's 2017, it's 20 years from the second one. So 17 years from the third one, and not as many from the fourth one, but seriously, people. But like Billy's mom being the killer, but you have no idea, like there's no context for it. So it's just like oh, cool, and then the guy you kind of forgot about from their group who's just crazy. He's got my favorite line of the whole series, just because he's like, "Didn't see it coming, did you?" And he's like, just loses his mind like when he says it.
Oh man, Matthew Lillard in that first one. Anytime I see him anymore, all I can think of is him from that movie. Just like, come on, man, do it.
You stabbed me deep, man.
Oh, come on.
My mommy's gonna be so mad at me. Oh my gosh. But my pitch. Okay, I'll go first. Like I had this idea. Hold on. The baby calleth. So I'm doing the double P's here, the podcasting and the parenting, holding the double shift. So hold that thought.
Keep them in suspense.
Think of Ghostface.
All right. Well, while Tyler checks on his infant, we will once again tell you, or I will tell you, this podcast marathon and the one happening in Elgin, Illinois, are both brought to you today by the Blue Box Cafe. The Advanced TV Herstory podcast, which I want to check out, but I don't know if I could say that name every week, like a tongue tie. Geeks A Go-Go website, and Entertainment Earth, with different sales every day. All right, Tyler.
Entertainment Earth is awesome.
Oh, they got a photo sale on right now. It's like buy one, get one 50%.
So, first of all, did you ever know the idea that Kevin Williamson had for Scream 3 that he wrote that the studio rejected?
I don't think I ever heard this.
Okay. So he wrote a script for Scream 3, and the studio didn't like it, and they went with Aaron Kruger's script. And the idea for Scream 3, Kevin Williamson eventually developed it to the first season of the TV show The Following. So that's just a tidbit. Now, this is my idea, because I thought I had this idea for an opening scene in my head, and I always wanted to kind of pitch it to Wes Craven, rest his soul, because I thought it would be kind of neat, and it would get back to that core of the first one. But the opening scene, it always starts with a phone call, would be Dewey calls Gail, who is working late at night, in some sort of office. They're chit-chatting. Gail's at work. Dewey's at home. He's about to watch a movie. He hangs up. The phone rings again. And when Dewey answers, it's Gail. And he's like, hey, why'd you call me back? She's like, no, you called me. And then the voice of the killer kicks in. And he's talking to both of them at the same time. And he's describing what Gail is doing. And so she's starting to freak out. Dewey's starting to freak out. And Dewey's on the phone, like, Gail, stay on the phone. I'm coming. He's getting ready. Like, we're cutting back and forth. And then as Dewey heads to the door, the killer pops out of the corner and slashes Dewey's throat. And Gail listens to him die on the phone. And she screams. And then it comes up with a 5. Okay? So that would be my opening scene. Because then right off the bat, we're taking out the survivors. No more of this opening scene of someone that we know nothing about. Like, we got Dewey gone. And the idea is actually that, and this is just spoilers, like you can't really do this without spoiling it, but the idea is it's certain people of the town that are doing it. There's a group of people who are the killer, and they're only targeting the survivors. Sydney, Gale, Detective Kincaid, the blonde, I cannot remember her name from Scream 4, because the idea is they're tired of the legacy that Sydney's family has left on their town. That's all they're known for now is these murders. So they want to they don't want it to happen again. And as long as Sydney is there, they feel like someone's going to try it again to be famous. So they're just going to wipe the slate clean and free their town of this evil.
But I mean, like I said, I love the first one. The second one's okay, but it's like you get to like 4 or 5. It's like, when are you just like, does the premise lose steam? And you're just like, oh, another copycat. Must be that time of year again.
That's the thing about 4 was like they even have the killer line at the end. It was like, don't mess with the original. Mm-hmm. You know, because it is kind of a remake, and they were just rehashing. And I think that's the key to the films, though. It's always about being meta. Mm-hmm. You know, and the whole live streaming the killer and everybody on their iPhone 3s at the time. But my idea would just kind of bring a conclusion to it and really like let it rest so that nobody would want to mess with it and do anything with it. Because 4 is neat, but it feels like it's almost like a one-off. Just because like the first are such a tightness, but it's also paying, you know, it's also 4 is also saying something about the time then that it was created, how everything was being remade, rebooted. So like they were on the meta part for that as well. And I don't have a problem with 4, how they did it. 3, I think 3 would have been cool if there would have been a twist. Like, this is the twist I would have liked to have seen either at the end of 3 or at 4. If there was an extra killer who wasn't working with the other killer. Like in 4, you know, we have the two who are supposed to be like the new Sydney and new Randy. Mm-hmm. But like, what if there was a twist and there was a third killer who was working independent? Like, just to kind of throw things off. Or at the end of 3, when Roman dies, there was another killer outside who just drops their weapon and walks off and like is never heard from again. Just something to kind of be like, oh snap, like where does that go?
But I mean, look how many hoops you gotta go jump through, you know, if you keep going on it. I mean, should you stop at a trilogy? Or even like with this movie, yeah, they wanted to make their money, but like, would this movie be held in even higher regard if they had just done one and that was it? And it's just like, you know, here's this fresh idea, one and done.
You know, I think it was something that came out that was so like, where did this come from? Mm-hmm. That a sequel was like, we need a sequel. And I love the second one, actually. Like, it has a lot of great parts, and it, you know, reflects back. The third one is the hardest one to like, that's where it gets like meta upon like, just almost, we're jumping that shark. Like, mm-hmm. we're taking it just a notch too much, like, but it makes sense with the whole a movie aspect, like it makes sense, but at the same time, like it's such a like the first one you could see these two planning it out. Like, okay, this could work. The second one you can kind of see like it's plausible. The third one has a lot of things that just happen to fall into place to get it to work. So, but as a film trilogy and now a quadrilogies are always hard.
Yeah.
Because you always feel like one of them's just awkward. It's like, could you do Scream 2, skip Scream 3, and just do 4? Like, I'm trying to think if there's anything that connects 3 and 4 tightly. Because you don't have Kincaid. And he's the extra survivor of 3. And in 3, none of the original cast die. Because all that's left is Dewey, Sid, and Gale. So you could almost do that, I think. Hold on, let me fix the bottle.
But yeah, I mean, these movies are great, like he was saying, but like I said, like especially with horror movies, unless like your villain is supernatural, you kind of lose credibility, or else you have to have somebody every time. I was just saying, it's like with horror movies, unless your like main villain is like supernatural or something, you either got to bring in somebody every time, or do you like if it's just like a regular person, do you start losing credibility?
It's kind of like with any horror franchise, your first ones are scary, and then the longer you go, they become more horror fun. And I mean, I'm not a huge horror watcher, but like I've watched enough to like comment in the sense like, okay, Jeepers Creepers. The first one is generally scary. The second one, you're rooting for the creeper to kill a bunch of stupid teenagers. That's a big jump in one, But I've only seen the original, and then New Nightmare and the remake of of Nightmare on Elm Street. Because after the first one, everyone says like it slowly gets more comical. Like it loses that horror essence that was there. And even, okay, for example, I think the Saw movies were really neat when they started with the way the story worked. The way 4, they pull a big twist on you. And then 5, 6, and 7 could have been 1 or 2 movies, but they stretched it out way too long. And now they have the new one coming out, Jigsaw. And to me, it looks like it's just going to be comic. Like, it doesn't even look scary. I remember seeing the trailer for the first Saw and being like wigged out. Now I'm looking at this Jigsaw trailer and I'm like, this looks like a laugh fest with blood. Like, it doesn't even look like it's going to be a scary movie.
But it's like, I mean, how many movies were in that original series? I mean, we have most of them, but it wasn't like
7.
5, 6, 7. Yeah, it's like, how can you sustain anything for like?
A good writer could have taken 5, 6, and 7 and made it into 2 solid films instead of carrying it over. Because 4 was really good. Because 4 tricked you, and you realized that 4 and 3 were happening at the same time. So they got you there.
But yeah, I remember seeing that first one, and I'm just like, whoa, what the hell is this?
Oh, I was freaked, man. Like, and then, like I said, like the new one, I'm like, this looks stupid. And a friend who's a really big horror fan, and even Chris, my brother-in-law, is a big horror fan, and he said the new trailer for like the Leatherface movie just looks like stupid and like comical. It doesn't even look scary. And that's the problem that happens with franchises after a while, is you lose that edge.
Well, especially when you're rebooting and stuff. It's like, we need new horror characters.
I mean, think about, like, I've never watched any of them because I just don't really have the desire to. But like the Chucky movies, like, I know they just released a new one, and I'm like, if they people have said is like they just get funny and more goofy and more out there. That, I mean, look, they took Friday the 13th to Jason in space. Okay,
Manhattan was bad enough.
I've only watched the first one, and I think the second one, and then I watched the remake because at the time I wanted to see if I could sit down and edit the Friday the 13th remake / reboot and the My Bloody Valentine reboot into a lost episode of Supernatural.
Huh? But yeah, I mean, again, those movies are original, but then Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, start getting into part 5, part 6, part 7.
Look at the Halloween franchise as well. Like somehow they're gonna do a new Halloween movie.
Oh, I mean, look how long that thing's been going. Yeah, they're coming out with a new one. It's Jamie Lee Curtis and her daughter, like her grown daughter. And the very first one, Jamie Lee Curtis was, I don't know if she actually was that age. She was supposed to be a teenager in that first one.
And like she was supposed to have died in 9. And I totally wrote a cool scene, like just with some friends. I was like, here's how you start the movie. She wakes up, keeps talking about this reoccurring dream where Michael kills her in an asylum and how they tried to make her old house a reality show. And then she's like,
think about what you just said. She was supposed to die in 9.
I know.
9.
And then she's like, man, and then like make a off meta reference about that rock star director trying to make a movie based on her life. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of poking at the Rob Zombie film at the same time. Just because the continuity is so like, okay, for example, here we go. H2O, Halloween H2O was written by Kevin Williamson. Yeah, I think it was one of his projects after they didn't pick up his script for Scream 3, pulled it back around. And his opening scene was a boy doing a report on the history of Haddonfield. And he kind of summed up and tied in all of the Halloween movies. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and then H2O would be 7. I think, yeah. And it was and they cut the scene out because like the producer wanted it to be like 1, 2, H2O. And that's when the franchise gets crazy, when you have to start, hey, forget this movie, or this one didn't exist, this one's rebooting this movie. It's too much, man. It's like the Terminator franchise. They're gonna do another one, and it's supposed to take place after T2. All the other movies don't count.
Yeah.
To the average moviegoer, like that's just too much. Like you just want to enjoy a film, not do homework on it before you watch it.
Well, I think that was the problem with Superman Returns is just, didn't they say, oh, no, it goes 1, 2, Superman Returns. They're just ignoring 3 and 4.
Yeah, and I mean...
And to the guy on the street, they're like, wait a minute, what happened? They don't know that.
Yeah, like my mom watched, she's like, why do they have cell phones? I'm like, because it's modern day, but it's supposed to be connected to the old movie. Just go with it, Mom. But it was just an error. Like, I can understand wanting to honor what had come before, not completely copy it. And, it's such a weird study of a movie. But so what would you do? You said you would do the prequel?
Yeah, if I had to do something, I think I would do the prequel.
So would you end your prequel film on Billy and Stu murdering Maureen, or would you end it so that it ties into the beginning of part 1? So like you see them murder Maureen and like the last act, you have the funeral, and then like it cuts as a year later, and you see them setting up to call Drew Barrymore, and it ends with Drew Barrymore answering the phone.
Exactly that, except I don't know if I would end it with calling Drew Barrymore, or maybe right before, just like one of them picking up the Ghostface costume and saying, we could have fun with this.
Well, like, I work at a movie theater, okay? And I watched, because I was cleaning the theater, I've seen the end of Annabelle Creation way too many times.
Yep.
But the cool thing about that movie was I was sitting there watching it like, wait, this continuity doesn't line up. But then it pulls a really neat twist, and it really pulls it and shows you that it is a straight up Annabelle prequel. And the way it ends is on an interesting note into the original Annabelle film, which sucked. But so I think that was really cool for that movie when you're dealing with trying to keep a good continuity in your films. But once again, I like the Scream movies, always had, because of the whole just movie angle, but then like the mystery killer and just like even the discussion, like Randy talking about best trilogies, and they're discussing directors and everything, and they were just kind of fun. And then Ghostface showed up and he killed Fish Mooney before she was Fish Mooney, so I gotta give him that too.
Oh, me and Lilith were having some discussion. I've had many today. She said she'd be a big fan of Jada Pinkett Smith. I was like, what, before Gotham? And she said, what she said, she's like, no, that didn't bog me. I'm like, oh. She's like, she just started acting weird. I'm like, oh, what, Scientology?
Actually, the thing about Fish Mooney is no one knows that's not actually, she's not acting. That's just her. She just decided not to act through that one.
How dare you say that?
So, I mean, that wraps up our discussion on the Scream series. I mean, I will say this, kind of throwing out there. I did watch the first season of the TV show out of curiosity. And it's like this. I liked it, but I don't like that it's called Scream. Like, it doesn't feel like no characters, nothing is similar. Except, people being killed. The mask is so different. If you would have just taken the mask and, like, put the jaw up so it doesn't try to have the open mouth and just called it something else, I feel like they just called it Scream to try to piggyback off the name recognition. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I mean, if you ever watch it, just don't try to connect it with Scream. Just think of it as something else. It could be called Yell or Teenage Murders.
That's just them trying to cash in on that name,
Yeah, I mean, if you think of it like that, it's more enjoyable than thinking like, wow, they tried to make a TV series out of Scream, because it's so disconnected from the idea and the source material of Scream. But Phil, I do want to say thank you, Phil. You've done a great job with today's marathon. It's been pretty awesome. I've kind of popped in here and there when I could. I wanted to jump in earlier, but I'm, managing the 2 children and the dog.
We can see.
Yes. And Solomon has no fear. Earlier, he tried to ride the dog. So, yeah, keeps me on my toes.
No fear, no pants.
Yeah. Keeps me on my toes. And there he goes.
I know where you're at, buddy. I know where you're at. Just wait another year or so to be like, Daddy, look, he'll like climb up on the highest thing in the house. Daddy, catch me.
Oh, earlier, I don't know if you can see. Hold on, this little wall right here by the stairs. That one, yeah. He's like, Daddy, play me the Spider-Man theme. And I started playing it. He tried to climb the wall. I was like, are you climbing the wall, son?
Yes.
He's like, yeah. I'm like, but all right, well, see you guys.
All right. If you have the chance, you can jump on at 9 if you want.
We'll see how it goes.
I know. All right.
All right. Bye.